So before we start, no questions. I lecture 100% of the time. Yeah, I have a system actually when I read. It's very sophisticated. I use stars and brackets and curvy brackets. So I did a lot of things wrong, but I did all right. So, yep. Yeah, I have a system. If you are a highlighter, I tell the students like to highlight to study the brown lines. So when you first start learning something, highlight what you don't know in yellow. And then when you go back to review, you highlight it in pink. And then when you go back again and review, you highlight it in blue. Then when you're getting ready for the test, just read the brown lines because that's what you were still struggling with. So maybe that's not very effective, I guess, but it's worked for some. All right, I'm going to get started. So I just go by Frank. So I'm primarily from Western Iowa Tech. So I want to talk to you guys about video. I'll tell you a bit about my story, about how it even started. I was on hydrocodone, sitting home after having my gallbladder out, and I was upset that my students were not learning anything because it was actually it didn't go as well as they planned, so I had to miss 10 days, and we were covering the digestive system. So I thought, I'm home, not much going on. I really just couldn't drive because of the pain medication, so I started using Show Me, which actually Kendra had taught about Show Me and EduCreations and those interactive whiteboard apps, and I had it, and I had never really tried it. So I took the pictures from my colonoscopy and my endoscopy. So literally the first videos I ever made were the students talk about connectedness. The students have seen inside of my body. So I actually made some videos about the digestive system, and it worked really well. The feedback was great. So, and I'll talk to you guys at the end if we get there about how you should start. But truly, just start simple. Make a few videos. Don't worry about, in the beginning I was never on camera. I know there's lots of things. The video doesn't have to be yours. I mean, you can curate videos just as well. So, but that's how I started. And the feedback was so positive that I thought, okay, I'll just make, a video or two, kind of an overview of each unit, an overview of each chapter, and start there. And I kept just making and making and making. So, years later, I have hundreds of, over 600 videos that I've made. And it took a long time. I wouldn't expect everyone to do that. But honestly, I kept making them because they were working. So today I want to talk about, you can have this fancy chair if you want it. So I don't plan on sitting. So I want to talk about kind of why video has been so important to the students, and then different ways you can use it. And then a lot of this translates to face-to-face classes as well. I do a lot of the video-based things in my online, hybrid, and face-to-face classes. So I actually feel bad for my face-to-face students because we do a flipped classroom, but you can stand or lap up. You can sit on Amy's lap. So my face-to-face students, they really take the brunt of it because they do the full flipped classroom experience, but have to use all the resources that really I created for my online students. So they're having double duty. So that's kind of where I'm at in this process. So I do want to start by just talking about, and like I mentioned earlier, for those who just came in, no way I can get through all this. If all I did was read it, I couldn't do it in 45 minutes. So I'll get the PowerPoint to Teresa, or you can reach out to me, and I'll share this information with you. So why do I use video? Because my goal is always to at least meet students' expectations, but preferably to exceed them. And I think that's impossible to do, or nearly impossible to do, with just read these pages of the textbook and I'll see you next Monday. So it doesn't have to be video to do this. I have a lot of audio resources that are very well received. I have resources that I've curated from other places that are very well received. But I just think we have to do more. So I continued to build, especially with people that are demanding this. When they're struggling in your classes, they're going to YouTube anyways. So it's clearly what they want. So if you become the expert when you create the resources. So I think that's the first reason that we should use video. Now, from a neuroscience standpoint, why should we use video? We were very visual creatures. Our brains, like a shark. If I was teaching sharks, I would use smell-o-vision because smell is the most important sense to their brain. But vision is clearly the most important sense to our brain. So we're very visual creatures. Now, if you want to look at the neuroscience, I can't go too deep into it. This is also why, much to some of our chagrins, and even mine, you have to be on the videos sometimes. The audio and the screencast, they work great for if you want to churn out a lot of content, and I've done more of them than anything. But introduction, welcome videos, intro to the week, intro to the unit, seeing someone's face. We're not evolved to just hear people. So if it's you and it's your face, even occasionally, that makes a huge impact as far as, because before the advent of video, there was never, an interconnectedness between two human beings where we weren't looking at each other. I mean, maybe, I don't know, smoke signals, different things, but you get what I'm saying. So to me, video is very important, but at least occasionally, your video with you on it is important as well. Engagement. So I develop a relationship with my students. I've had teachers, and I know I've talked to other instructors about this. There are other teachers that use some of my resources, and I am developing a relationship with their students. And so at least on their end, right? So there are, I've had students say that they felt like I was teaching them because of the video resources that they were using. So definitely on their side, they're a lot more engaged with me, and they have a relationship with me as well. Now, what I'm trying to do is increase the way that students can do that. And that's one beautiful thing about Canvas. I love that, just that button, right? Now with Canvas, as long as the computer has a webcam, you push one button. Students can do, their discussions can be videos. That they can respond back to your feedback and comments with video. One of the best improvements to me of Canvas over eCollege was how easily video can be done. So, most of the videos I made on my iPad with the Show Me app, traditions where I started anyways. Then I had to move them to Dropbox and then move them over and change the file format. It was crazy. But so Canvas has made it so much easier, in my opinion, to do that. And another thing is, it's really hard to carry me around, but that's the cool thing about video is students get to carry me around in their pocket. Now, my students also love the fact they can slow me down. Any of your video players, you can slow playback speed down. That's the biggest complaint I get when I'm lecturing is I talk too fast. And I basically, my response is I can be passionate about the material or I can talk slow. I can't do both. So the beauty of video is that they can slow me down. They can pause me. They can rewind me. So if there's any confusion, it doesn't, I'm not immediately assaulting them with more information when it comes to video because they can stop and they can understand. They can ask me questions. I can respond. And to me, it just makes the learning so much better. So, just the fact that at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, I can, if a student wants to learn, I can be there to teach them. That's a huge thing to me. And the fact they can slow me down. So, because especially when I'm heavily caffeinated, it can be a problem. All right, how about this? How many of your online students have told you they don't want to be in online classes, but they have to be in online classes? I mean, to me, that is massive. We, at community colleges, we see this. We've always seen a massive influx of non-traditional students, and that's not going to change. But students that have kids and jobs, they're falling in love with online hybrid classes, but they're terrified to. I mean, they're doing it as a last resort. So if you develop an online class that says, I know you want to be in the face-to-face classroom, I know you want lecture. I know you want the teacher to teach you, right? If you just say, here's the textbook, they're in trouble. They might muddle through it, but it's not how they want to learn. It's not how they want to be taught. But when I show students that I have unit reviews and test reviews and all these content videos, and I am teaching them everything just the way they want to be taught, that is a huge, huge thing. And I think not only can that help that individual student, but words start to spread. And if you build a class well with resources, these non-traditional students will actually flock to your courses because they're getting the experience they want, but in an asynchronous way at their own timeline. So I think same thing with hybrids. You're seeing hybrid classes are exploding for the same reason. Students don't really want to be in the hybrid classes. Some of them don't, but it's the only way it fits into their schedule. So I think that is something we often don't think of. How many of your students are taking an online class but really wouldn't be a good online student? It's not how they learn. It's not how they're wired. But it's take online classes, maybe take a hybrid class or two, or not go back to school. So we have to meet their needs. It's all about meeting or exceeding those expectations. So let's talk about that's the easiest way in the world to exceed a student's expectations. When they've taken online classes or taken classes where it has just been, you're responsible for these pages in the textbook and see you next Monday, and then they start to see the resources that you're providing. That is the simplest way to exceed a student's expectations. So I think that's a large group, and I think it's only going to get bigger. These are big words that I don't know about everywhere else, but recruitment, retention, and completion. So again, these non-traditional students are saying, you know what? You can actually go back to school, even though you can't be there Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10. You can get an experience that's really similar to that in an asynchronous environment. That's recruitment. Retention and completion, and the reality is when students get in classes and they feel like, hey, I didn't pay to teach myself. I can't do it. They leave. So if they leave, we're not retaining them and they're not completing. So I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I think you guys all understand that. So it doesn't have to be video, but when you create a class that increases the odds that a student is going to be successful, that's going to help with both retention and completion. And just the relationship. So I have a relationship with my students through video, especially the newer stuff I've been trying to do with the video feedback and stuff that I never had before. So I'll get into specific examples in just a moment here, but that's something that's been really big to me. Something I'm working on is, I've always done, screencasts of the syllabus and like these, and an intro to the course, but my syllabus is just in such a sterile document. I really want to change that. So I'm hoping to hear some of the things that you guys are doing, and I plan on learning a lot these next couple of days. But that's one thing. I feel like my students know that I'm pouring my heart and soul into them, and then I give them this syllabus that's like nothing but fear and boredom could come out of it, right? So maybe if that's the case with you, maybe a video syllabus or a video screencast walkthrough of your syllabus might change that. They'll get to know you're not as terrifying as your syllabus, right? I always tell students I create the syllabus as a worst-case scenario so they have the power to do things in a worst-case scenario. So that's not very inviting. I sound like an a-hole on my syllabus. Like zero tolerance on this and deducting points for that. And you can certainly do that, but those, putting those things on the syllabus is really just to give me the power to do it in the situations where I have to. So the students might look at my syllabus and think, he really doesn't care that much about me, and that's not what I want. So a welcome video or a syllabus walkthrough can solve that. You can literally tell the students, the syllabus looks this way because it's the worst case scenario. I hope we don't have that kind of relationship, right? So the relationship starts there, and that's something I'm working on as well. Okay, this is something I really enjoy doing too. Once you have this library of videos, yours curated, doesn't matter. At the beginning of every class, I like to give them, and I don't know how many students take advantage of it, but I like to lay out, here's what you already should know, right? We used to teach a basic biological concepts class at WIT, and all the resources I created for that class just is basically at the beginning of anatomy. Now, technically, they've gotten a certain score, ACT score, CPT score, whatever different measures we use. They're supposed to know that. But just because they got 12 multiple choice questions right doesn't mean they understand metabolism or cell organelles. So I actually like to lay out at the beginning, here's what you should know. For my AMP2 students, I give them all of my AMP1 resources. Not saying that they would have time to go through all of them, but it's nice, right? So I actually prefer teaching the same group of students. I don't look at AMP1 and 2 as two separate classes. It's just one huge class with a break in the middle. So I like to tell students, I know you should know this because I remember when I taught it to you, right? But you can't do that all the time. So, or maybe students took a different class where the order was taught differently and they really didn't cover something as well as I would like them to. I have those resources. Now, what I really want to start doing is doing this with other instructors. So, all the resources I've made that would make perfect sense for your kinesiology students to know. Why aren't we doing that? So why aren't the nursing instructors doing a pretest? It's like, here's everything you should have gotten out of anatomy and physiology. And if they didn't, then they can use my resources to catch up. So this is something, again, how I'm trying to evolve in this area is to use it as a collaborative tool as well. So, all right. And there's this, clearly just the world is changing, and if you want a job in teaching, you need to get, the tech train's not stopping, so I think this is, we've had cuts at our school, there's been all manner of different things, you never know where education is heading, but if you're the one that's exceeding students' expectations, and you're the one that is an early adopter of technology, you fit in the direction that education is going. So I just think it's very important. Okay, now the actual examples, and then I want to hear from you guys how you're using video, how maybe you can chat with yourselves once I'm done talking here, and how you can do this. So this personalization, I've already given some examples. A 3-minute welcome video, and then so the first two things I want students to see are this 3-minute welcome video and then a syllabus screencast. So, but you can introduce the weeks that way. I know, like Jennifer, you've been doing that, right? The video at the beginning of every week. So I have like the old assignment tab from eCollege, and it's this long, and I can clearly tell by the emails that some students aren't reading them. But a short, right, like a short video where it was kind of nice there is you can also tell students, here's where you should be, here's what you should know, here's about how much time this week should take. I mean, of course, every student's going to be different, but some weeks are massive. Like like that Essentials of Anatomy class, you've got weeks where students have to cover 2 chapters, and then the next week they have to cover half a chapter, at least the way that I kind of pace it out, right? So I like to give a student the heads up. This week is going to take a little longer, or there aren't any quizzes or exams this week. This would be a great week to catch up. These types of things. So I like to let students know what to expect of the week ahead of them, and then you can constantly be reminding them. One thing with the online classes is, that last week is usually so intense and then ends on Friday. So I start warning students weeks in advance that last week is going to murder you if all you do is work on the weekends, and if you're doing that, you better get a week ahead then, because if not, you're in trouble. So those are the kind of things. Just pretty informal. I don't have with those videos, I don't have good lighting or anything like that, so I certainly don't. I have a face for radio, but still, the interaction is what matters. That real connection. Like, it'd be really hard for a student to think he doesn't care, because if I didn't care, I just wouldn't do this work. I'd get a lot more sleep. So. I commute 15 hours a week and have a 3-year-old. So if anybody could say, well, I probably shouldn't be going above and beyond, it might be me. But that's just how I'm built, I guess. All right, so all these different things. Motivation Monday, I've done that a few times when students, they're slacking on the discussion boards. They're just like, just the whole, take a moment. We're always worried about how much more we have to learn. Take a moment to look back at how much you have learned. Be proud of yourself for how far you've come. This is whenever I feel kind of a lull, I try to do that. I also like to share a lot of motivational quotes and these kind of things, just to get students in the right mindset. I think with learning, it's all about mindset. So if you're learning out of fear, I don't even think those memories even get stored correctly or in the right part of the brain. So when a student is sitting down terrified that they're not going to be smart to figure this out, et cetera, it's just not a good place to be. So I want students thinking about why they're studying. You're studying and learning because you want a better life for you and your kids, right? You're studying and learning, so at least in our areas, you're studying and learning because you can, make the world a better place by caring for other human beings. That's the mindset students need to be in, and instead of this terror mindset. So I think we can help. I really think we can help. All right. So virtual tours. Canvas has been super easy to use, so I haven't had to do as many of these. But with eCollege, I had to do quite a few. Like I had a tutorial for really how to do everything. It's just shocking. You guys know it's shocking how moving the syllabus tab an inch is such a huge deal to students. So I had to change with the digital lab manuals we use for some of the anatomy classes. I had to change the name from eText to eText Lab Manual, because students, they just couldn't figure it out. The directions told them where to go, but they need help. And my wife jokes that the next thing I should do is to make tutorials about how to use my tutorials, because I make these things and they don't help as much as I would think. Like when I make a tutorial, it's because a student's had a question. And I'm like, I want to solve this problem so no student ever has to have this question again. But it seems to decrease the number of questions, but doesn't eliminate them. So there is only so much you can do. But that's kind of how I look at these. When I think, just an overview of how your course is built is a really good idea. But if a bunch of students are having trouble finding something or using something, the big one for me this semester was the remote Proctor Now stuff. So I had to create, quite a few thing to try to walk students through how to use remote Proctor Now. So my vote is to get rid of it. I don't know about your guys', but it hasn't worked well. But that's kind of how I decide. If students need a tour on something or a walkthrough on something, I generally let them tell me what they need by the questions that they ask. So. Hands-on skills, this is something I'm really going to be working on this summer. I've done a whole series on the microscope, so before students ever get into the microscope lab, they should have no problem, understanding how to use the microscope. And I don't know what you guys teach, but are there orthopedic tests or nursing clinical applications, what could you put on video? So what I'm going to be doing this summer is a lot of micro lab prep stuff. So it's just there are some things that need to be shown more than told. So I've created elaborate written destructions. That's actually how it ends up being. But elaborate written instructions for some of these things, but it doesn't work. So even this is outside the classroom. I'm doing some of this stuff for my lab aid in the micro lab. So we've had some issues where, I mean, multiple times I've told them how to do something and there's mistakes, right? So just a real quick, either finding or creating, here's how you make an auger plate, that's to me just works really well. So I don't know how that'll fit in all of your classes, but any of those hands-on skills, I think that makes a lot of sense.
So that's what you're doing in your face-to-face class?
When I do video, it's for everybody. That's why I said I feel bad for the face-to-face students, because they do all the stuff that they have to do, plus I throw everything at them that I'm creating for my asynchronous classes. Yeah, and I teach some hybrids too, so it's all over the place. But that's just how it is. Like all of my discussions, my weekly thread discussions are video based. Those are actually TED Talks. I'll get to that in a moment. And they're going phenomenal. Like it went from students hating discussions to actually saying it's their favorite part of the class. And it's not me. These TED Talks are amazing as long as you find the right ones. But so I love them so much, and students get so much out of them that even my face-to-face students, and no one's ever really complained, at least to me, I'm sure they do. But my face-to-face students have to do threaded online discussions. So I meant to say, sorry. So that's the thing. I'm going to talk about that in the other talk a little bit later, just about I do try to be very understanding, and I want students to know that I'm on their team. But it's not about easy. I'm not trying to be their friends. Like they log lots of hours getting through my classes because of all these extra resources. But in a way, what I try to tell the students is, my videos are not a complete replacement for the reading that you would do, but 65% or more of us are visual learners if you believe in those kind of how people learn. But so you can read the textbook. And I've had one student in the last 5 years that just said, the videos just don't work for me. Can I just read the textbook and take notes instead? And I let them. So, but when students see the videos that I give them, I tell them, before you freak out, remember, how long would it take to read a chapter in an anatomy textbook? And I'm not asking you to do that. These videos have made that textbook come to life in a way that the textbook is now a reference. So watch the videos, use my lecture outlines, etc. Use the textbook to kind of spot check the areas you're struggling with. So I don't know if the net time actually goes up compared to, I don't know if you guys have ever sat down and read the chapters of your textbook, but they take a long time. So, and the thing is, I think my primary job as a teacher is to be a filter. I don't want them to know everything in the textbook equally. So the videos allow me to emphasize what they need to know. I mean, you cannot learn everything you need to know in anatomy by taking it once, or microbiology. I'm sure your classes too. So I don't want them to equally learn everything and remember 30% of it. I want them to be hammered with the 30% I'd like them to remember, and then any overflow is just awesome, right? So, yes, because same thing. What I tell my face-to-face students is, I know it's not an online class. I'm giving you all these video resources, but I'm not asking you to read the textbook, and then they're usually fine with that. So, good question. All right, so this is what I really do. I mean, this is where I started anyways. My first 449 videos were screencasts with Show Me, right? So I've now moved on to, Camtasia and making things nicer. I got a better microphone, which students are very happy about. If you anything technical, just worry about the microphone. Like, lighting doesn't have to be perfect, video doesn't have to be perfect, but lighting doesn't have to be perfect. The sound needs to be really, really good. So I've moved on, and I've used a lot of different things. Now, Camtasia's been amazing for screencasts. I really enjoy them. Somebody's doing a talk, I think, tomorrow on Screencast-O-Matic. I've never used that one, but I've heard good things about that too. So, but I call them my content review videos. And this is what I meant when I said that when I first started, it was, well, let's just do here's the 3 most important topics about the immune system. Let's start there. And I just never stopped. So now it's, you're going to be gone for 2 weeks? Well, every single thing that's important is on this list of videos. Now, if you come to lecture, so my lectures are, I know lecture is a terrible thing, but I do more. That's a joke. Sorry. I think lecture can be done really, really good and really, really bad, right? So I still lecture quite a bit, but it's in a flipped classroom environment. They already know the basic foundation. So our lecture time is generally the cool rabbit holes I like to take students down. So it's interesting stuff, but you don't miss any of the core content if you miss class. So because that's all covered in the videos. And then we do case studies and those types of things in lectures. So anybody do any kind of flipped classroom stuff? I guess in a sense all online classes have to be, right? But in the face-to-face realm, I've really found that enjoyable. Longer things, I've generally done a lot more audio. I'm starting to do like kind of some screencast audio here. But like the big overviews or reviews of the units, these types of things, or test reviews, I've generally just done audio. I haven't it's just been super easy for me to sit down but you could easily turn it into a screencast but I don't want to spend hours and hours, editing and organizing stuff. I just want to hit record sometimes. So yeah, if you want to start with audio, we'll talk about where to start. Then just start with audio. If video is holding you back, audio is phenomenal. If you ask my students what's the best things I create for them, it's the audio reviews. It is. It's like a podcast. I just sit down. Okay, what do I think is important? Sometimes in some classes, I will literally sit down with the textbook because I don't teach out the textbook, but it is a good reference. So I'll even sit down and just kind of page through the textbook, chatting with my students about, hey, that's kind of cool, and they like it. So and it seems to work. Grading. This is something I'm just starting to do. I have a new policy where every student is going to get 3 of these a semester. Because I teach a lot of students, and I can't do this all the time for everybody. But especially now with that easy function in Canvas. So, like you guys that are, there are some, I'm sure some areas this is even much more important. Like I'm generally just talking about, expanding on things they talked about in their thread of discussion or just kind of feedback. But then there are some writing assignments and things. But I could see with the public speaking stuff you guys are talking about grading and those types of things, this could be phenomenal. Not only is it way better, like my teacher took the time to give me personalized feedback, that's way quicker. Like I can't stand. I have a broken wrist. I hate writing, and it would take me way longer to type out my response or to mark up something than it would to do the video feedback. So I'm sure audio would be fine there too. But I think that's an area that I've really gotten into, and so far the students have really liked it. Now, don't burn yourselves out. That's why I set that kind of rule. Especially early in the semester, I want everyone to get that experience once because it will hopefully exceed expectations. But then I save the other ones for later in the semester once I've seen how the student has progressed. But again, that's brand new for me, so I can't say it's going to work great. But yeah.
Do you find that they incorporate your feedback better when you give them audio or video feedback?
Yeah, I honestly think they take it more to heart. Yep. Now, of course, if you mark up somebody's paper with a red pen, which use green pen, the science says, but that just makes sense, right? But if you mark up somebody's paper, you took the time to personalize feedback to them. But we're just such visual and auditory creatures that, I do think it hits them more. Yep. That's the little secret here. And this might be a tip for you guys too. Students just love it, and it's unbelievable, so much of this stuff. It doesn't take time. Now, it took time, right? But it saves time. I'm still making new videos all the time, but I'm using videos that I made 3 or 4 years ago. So, and updating them as I go and this kind of thing. So this is it's actually quicker for me to do this, yet they think they get more out of it. Yes?
Oh, what about the closed captioning?
Talk to her about that. Renee's. I've got like the content review videos almost all of them have been captioned. I'm moving things over. I'm trying my best on that. Far from perfect. TED Talks already have interactive transcripts and those kind of things. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now, but it's an issue, and I've actually stopped doing some things because of that, and that bothers me. So we have to get, because I can no longer record my lectures. My online students love the fact that I'd record my lectures and then give them to them. Again, if you're a face-to-face, if you don't want to be in online classes, well, I get to go to lecture. But I can't transcribe an hour every hour that I teach in the classroom. So now they have to just rely on the content videos, which is probably fine, right? I mean, studies show that students learn in shorter increments, and they like videos that are 6-15 minutes long. So I don't know how many were sitting there, but honestly, some students like the unimportant stuff from a lecture. And those are the ones that would listen to the whole thing, because the key content is all covered in those videos that are closed captioned. But man, I talk about some really cool stuff sometimes in class, at least I'm excited about, right? So, but yeah, it's too bad. And that's an issue. Like we need, I wish, and this is not a policy discussion, but I wish that equivalence was enough. I wish that no matter what accommodation you needed, I could point you to that resource, because I have lecture outlines and I have the content review videos that already cover all the key content. I don't feel that my other students should be punished, but I can't answer that question, and I'm a thorn in the side of anyone that talks about it. So. Because it works well. Ask my students, and I don't want to punish the students I have for a student I might have in the future. Now, closed captioning is awesome. It's just an issue of time, because students also like like watching videos when they can't have volume on. It's a win-win. I get it. Like that's what I really want to see when we're accommodating students and we're doing things for students. I want it to be things that help that smaller group, but really help everyone. The fact that I have to stop recording my lectures doesn't help. So that's my big issue there. So if anybody knows of an awesome way to transcribe that doesn't cost $1 or $5 a minute and actually gets words right, please let me know. I'm not kidding. So all right, guest lectures and interviews. So if you do them, that's great. If you have a guest come into your classroom, that's awesome, right? I did a talk called The Tired Brain last Friday at WIT, and it got recorded on Zoom, and if somebody else would want to use that in their class, and they're talking about tiredness or brains, then that's fine. But most of my guest lectures are the TED Talks. Like they are the experts. And I've taken some online instruction training, and I've had people say that the stuff should all be you. Like you should be doing everything. And there's where I absolutely disagree. Like I put up there, I've never created a drill. I love anatomy, physiology, microbiology. I love the stuff that I teach, and I geek out on it constantly. I live in South Dakota, so I listen to 15 hours worth of podcasts on double speed every week. I love this stuff, and no doubt about it. But I didn't do these things, right? I didn't create a drug that fights antibiotic resistance. I'm not on the front lines fighting world hunger. I didn't figure out how to turn a cricket into a potato chip, right? Those chirps, you ever have those, right? I haven't done that stuff. So to me, there are people that are way better than me. That's really what my weekly discussion boards are built on. It's a guest lecture, which is almost always a TED Talk, sometimes it's not. But then the key with there is, what questions do you ask after it? How do you so I like to answer the big why question with my TED Talk discussions. And students just love it. So it's related to what we learn, right? We're learning about the spinal cord. The TED Talk that I use is how they're getting paralyzed rats to walk again, right? And then we talk about that. It's important that you understand the anterior horn of the spinal cord. Here's why. Once we figure out how we can regenerate spinal tissue and help people walk. So that's what I try to do. It's always connected to the topic we're covering. Like the protein. Like when I'm teaching about protein and nutrition, it is the eating insects is actually what I like to do, because they're sustainable, they're nutritious, and and some of them actually taste kind of good. So to me, that's how I try to connect the discussion with this in this larger area. So that's what I mean when I say guest lectures. But do you bring in lecturers? So I know Linda's brought in who's the guy in Sioux City that some of the students really like, personal trainer. Yeah, so they record that guy. I don't know. Again, if you that just makes sense. Anybody else like to bring people in? I mean, to me. You should always be recording them and using it for hybrid online students or reusing it.
You could do it too if you knew that person, but they couldn't travel to you.
Mm-hmm.
You could see if they'd be willing to do a short podcast.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, if you're going to use Zoom anyways, they don't have to be in the room. Yeah, so that's an excellent point. Yep. And then students, lastly, honestly, I think this is very important, but I told ICCOC there was going to be 7, and I had no idea. I had to pick a title, so I didn't know if there was going to be 5 or 10, but I should have added this anyways, but that's why there was number 7. So I actually had the title out of 7 with an asterisk in it until I added this last night. So this is something, again, real new for me too, but especially now that Canvas, I know there's issues of, I'm sure we have students that don't have a smartphone or a webcam. I don't know who they are, but I'm sure we do. So maybe these things can't be forced upon students yet, but they're students can do this, and especially with Canvas, they can do it easier than ever. They can push that button, and they're ready to rock. So, you could just try this. Try a video discussion where maybe you ask the question and all the students' responses could be video. Now this is gray area for me. This is a new area for me. I know it's going to terrify people, and that's why I don't know if this should be an alternative to your other discussion. This types of things. I understand that video is not for everybody. I understand that even interacting in discussion boards is terrifying for some students. So I'm really looking at that, what the alternatives should be. So I don't know about forcing this on everybody, but it could be maybe a group project option, something like that. Yeah?
This was mainly with Pearson, but I added all these videos into my class, and every semester I would have 1 to 3 students that would say, I can't open the video, what do I, so I was given an alternate assignment.
Sure. Yeah, that was definitely a Pearson thing. Well, that's why I put all my videos are unlisted on YouTube. So if they can't get through them through the course shell, now they're public if they're not copyrighted material. But Pearson gave me permission to use the images I use, but as long as they stay private. So that's why I bypassed that. Also with the issue with Canvas, the file size limitations, right? This talk I gave at the back porch last Friday is 454 megabytes. That's not, doesn't the course only allow 500 megabytes? So my course would be really boring for 16 weeks. Just re-listen to this one talk I gave. So I think uploading things onto YouTube is really fixes that problem. So and then it starts the transcription process. Now it's not the brightest I've ever seen. They say Google, which YouTube owns, or Google owns YouTube, can read at about a 6th grade level. So I think you can see that when you look at the transcripts. But it's great to me, rather than sitting down and starting from scratch. And I know in a perfect world you would have your transcript, but I don't go off of transcripts. I can't. I've tried it. I can show you some of the videos I've made where I had them scripted. I am a robot and I can't stand myself. So I have to do it the other way. I have to make the video and then transcribe it. So YouTube helps, speeds that process up quite a bit. All right, so where do you begin? Does it have to be video? I think it's the best thing for the human brain. But like I said, audio resources are great. I'm sure you can do great text-based resources too. It's not, however you're engaging your students, that's awesome. But doesn't have to be video, but if you look at the brain science, it will help the most students, and it'll fire up the most neurons, and hopefully lead to better both engagement and retention. So, and learning, obviously. You have to make all your own. No, I think curating awesome videos is a really good idea. So, I think that the one, obviously, like if I had a personal welcome video and it was Renee welcoming people to her class, that wouldn't make any sense. So it would probably be really awesome, but it wouldn't make any sense. So I think that if you're going for personal interaction and engagement, they need to be yours. But other than that, no, if somebody else can make a video better than you, that's great. So but slowly I would increase the number of videos that are yours. The first I started with pictures of my colon. Right? And that, yeah, right. It was to talk about starting right out, firing right out of the gate. So that I had no idea. Yeah, right. So no, that was the night before with the magnesium citrate. All right. So yeah, too much information for them and for you guys now. So yeah, that's the thing. I would slowly add to your arsenal. I also did, my wife was pregnant and I was really passionate about doing this project, so I would stay in Sioux City. I live in Sioux Falls, so I would stay one night a week, and I would work from, when it got quiet, when everybody else left, till 3 in the morning. Like I was churning them out because I was on a deadline. I knew every minute that I spent working before my son was born would hopefully save me a minute, or obviously exponentially save me a minute. I just re-upload a video rather than reteach a concept now in some of these areas. So that's why I did it. So I churned a lot of them out fast. I wouldn't expect everyone to do that, but you need to start somewhere. Maybe so pick a unit. Have a schedule where you're going to make 1 video a week. Start with the simplest thing, which really I like Explain Everything now, but I think it's $25 or something. But EduCreations and Show Me are really good. But Show Me now I had to pay for Show Me more than Explain Everything anyways. So those are just interactive whiteboards. So if you teach chemistry or math, these kind of things, I looked at the Show Me app that I used, and I was like, man, This is great for what I'm doing because I can bring in the images from the textbook. So I was basically narrating the textbook. But if you teach math or something, like how cool would that be? Students, my kids have problems with math all the time. How cool would it be if, like, here's the problem, you know, and then it's 10 o'clock on Sunday night, your teacher can teach you how to solve that problem. So I can't think of an area where there couldn't be some value in video, for sure. So you have to be on camera, again, just enough for the personal engagement piece, I think. So honestly, especially early on, I wouldn't do too much. I'd worry more about getting a good number of videos out there interspersed around your course, and it's so much easier to do if you're not on camera because you can record anywhere. You don't got to worry about lighting. You don't have to worry about editing as much, that kind of stuff. So like I said, I've only done 20 or 30 videos that have been edited at all. And students are totally cool with that. The dog starts barking, my son started crying or whatever, like just whatever. You just, you know, it's just real. So would they rather I make one video that was highly edited, and they probably wouldn't even tell the difference really, or in that time I could make 10 or 20 videos. Like you gotta, it takes an hour of video, like professional stuff, right? Like TV commercials and stuff. It takes an hour of video to make a minute of a final product. So no one wants you to have to go through that much work. It doesn't make any sense. So keep the flaws in there. Students are totally fine with that. I've never had someone say, "Man, you really need a choreographer." I don't know. So, it doesn't happen. So just be you and just get started. So start somewhere. Start with your own colon. I found that works best. But it depends on where you teach, I guess. So all right, so this is kind of where, when it comes to all the extra stuff, besides the content that you're a subject matter expert in, what are students asking about? Where are they struggling? Answer their question and then create a video so hopefully it doesn't have to be answered again. That way, you're not deciding what videos your students need, what resources your students need. Your students are deciding what resources they need. So just listen to your students. All of you right now can think of what's the most common question that you get from students right now. Find a way. It can be a screenshot, tutorial. Those work really good too. Those are better than just text, right? But find a way to answer that question. So rather than even just kind of the somewhat snarky, it's in the syllabus reply, it can be, it's in this link. It's in this link reply. So just as easy to do, but now you're a hero instead. Yep.
So when you add something like in the middle of your course, like a question, where do you put it so you know that students see that you just added that?
I actually still, announcements and stuff. I do a lot. I email students a lot, to be honest. So yeah, just because they some of them, they're all at different places. So if I add it to like that week's assignment tab, I got students that are working on like 8 weeks ahead. So almost always email. Plus, I'll give it to them and then tell them where I put it in the shell. Because that way, when I do the course again, it'll be where I want it.
Canvas have that little click where it says notify students that content has changed? Yeah.
Yeah, I've never used that, but that's so like when they entered the course, it would say check somewhere because all I'm talking about changing assignments. Like if you're adding a resource or something. So like let's say I change what's in the week 4 module.
Right. Just add a different video.
Okay, I can look into that. Well, I can have Renee help me with that. So she saves us all with and Amy and everybody else. I couldn't do anything with Canvas without them. But so I know we're done. That's actually got about as far as I wanted. So I was just going to say, like, of course, everything you're doing here, look for ways to use it in your face-to-face classes. So I mean, it works. So when students have to be gone, when you have to be gone, students are still learning. So any last-minute questions? Am I supposed to be done at 10?
What are some of the programs you like to use, the video?
Okay, so tools. So I like Explain Everything for the interactive whiteboards, but EduCreations, I know a tech teacher right now using EduCreations. I use Show Me, those are all good. But Camtasia is primarily what I use. But that works really well. I've even done EduCreations will allow you to record things, but I can also just record the screen while EduCreations is open, and I kind of can use it that way. Or I'm sorry, Explain Everything. So that whatever works best for you. I know there's Jing and Screencast-O-Matic and all that. Audio, just the best mic you can get for, like, this is a a Rode Lav Plus, I mean, whatever it's called. It was $70. It plugs into my iPhone. It's not the best mic in the world, but it's way better than just having my audio memo app open sitting in front of me. So whatever's best. Like a USB microphone, like a Blue Yeti, which is under, I think, $100 or less, like just quadruples the sound content of the internal microphone. So students were fine with the internal microphone on the iPad when it's all they knew. Then I started using a real microphone, and they're like, holy crap, those old videos sound terrible. So just the best audio you can get. But see, you can't plug a Yeti into an iPad or something, right? So I actually use, I'm really into this stuff. So I bought a 2-in-1, a Windows, Spectre X360. I spent too much money on a computer, but that's because it's a really good computer, but then it also works as a large tablet, so I can do what I used to do with my iPad. But don't start there. Start with, if you're going to buy anything, the Snowball by Blue is half the price of the Yeti and works really well too. We're talking $50 or $60. If you're going to spend $60, get a USB microphone as long as what you're going to record on it has a USB slot. Just worry about audio quality. That is it. Yeah, after that, just play around with it. But I've been real happy with the things I've used. Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys.